And care enough, there comes a moment in every woman's life, a divine pause when she looks in the mirror, not just to check her reflection, but to see her truth. Enough, not the truth that's been shaped by what others expect of her, not the version that's been molded by sacrifice, compromise, or silent suffering, but the truth that says, I'm more than what I've endured. She chooses herself when she gets tired of being the glue that holds everything together but feels like she's falling apart inside. She chooses herself when being strong becomes too heavy, and she realizes that strength doesn't mean self-neglect. It means knowing when to say enough. She chooses herself the day she stops asking for permission to rest, to dream, to rise, to be heard. Care enough, she no longer waits for hours of validation because her spirit has already approved her. Heaven whispered yes the moment she was born. Enough, she chooses herself not in a moment of anger, but in a moment of awakening, when she sees that her worth was never tied to how much she gives others, but how deeply she honors her own soul. She chooses herself after betrayal, after being overlooked, after being told she was too much, too soft, too complicated. Instead of shrinking, she expands. She reclaims every piece of herself that she once gave away freely and says, this time, I keep me. She chooses herself when she finally understands that healing is not selfish, that rest is holy, that boundaries are not walls, but bridges that lead her back to her peace. She steps into her power not with noise, but with quiet certainty, a gentle, unshakable yes to herself. When a woman chooses herself, the world shifts. Heaven takes notice because a woman aligned with her own truth, anchored in God, and unapologetic in her becoming, she is unstoppable. So if you're listening and wondering, when is my time? Beloved, it's now. Not tomorrow, not when they understand, not when it's easier. There comes a quiet break in the life of a woman. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. And it doesn't always come with tears or shouting or slamming door. It comes softly, almost invisibly, like a whisper rising from deep within her bones. It's a sacred moment, the kind of moment where she finally sees just how much of herself she has poured into everyone else and how little is left for her. She has been the caretaker, the counselor, the encourager, the fixer, the peacekeeper, and the pillar. She has been the friend who always answers the phone no matter the hour, the daughter who suppresses her pain to make her family proud, Karen, the wife who silences her dreams to support someone else's vision, the mother who sacrifices her identity for the sake of nurturing everyone else's. For so long, she has worn her strengths like armor. She has carried the weight of expectations like they were stitched into her skin. She has adapted, adjusted, care enough, and endured. But one day, without warning, she wakes up and realizes she's not okay. She starts to feel the heaviness of the invisible load she's carried, the unspoken grief of abandoning herself, the silent anger of being everything for everyone and yet feeling invisible in her own life. Her smile, once genuine, now feels like a mask. Her laughter sounds hollow. Her body feels weary, not just from lack of sleep, but from emotional depletion. Her soul begins to whisper, I miss me. A woman chooses herself when she gets tired, not just physically tired, but spiritually tired, and tired of explaining herself, tired of being misunderstood, tired of shrinking so others can feel comfortable, tired enough of being available to people who are never available for her, care enough out of putting everyone else's needs at the top of the list and leaving her own at the bottom. She gets tired of being strong in public but breaking down in private. She gets tired of being the one who always shows up, even when no one shows up for her. She gets tired of holding her breath, waiting for someone to know her pain, her dreams, her worth. And in this exhaustion, she finally asks the questioning, what about me? Choosing herself doesn't mean she stops loving others. It means she starts loving herself with the same intensity she's shown everyone else. It means she stops sacrificing her well-being on the altar of obligation. It means she no longer feels guilty for saying no, for needing space, putting up boundaries, for choosing rest, for wanting more than just survival. She begins to reevaluate everything. Her relationships, her routines, her responsibilities. She begins to question whether the roles she plays are truly hers or just inherited expectations. She begins to realize that self-sacrifice without reciprocity isn't love. It's depletion. That loyalty to everyone else shouldn't come at the cost of betrayal to herself. In choosing herself, she starts the beautiful, painful process of letting go. She lets go of people who only take, she lets go of roles that feel more like cages than callings. She lets go of guilt. The guilt of not doing enough, and care enough, of not needing a break. She lets go of the belief that her worth is measured by how much she produces, provides, or proves, and care enough. Freedom to rest without shame, freedom to dream again, freedom to say yes to herself without explaining why. She begins to pour back into herself with intention. She starts reading books not to fix someone else's problems, but to nourish her own mind. She begins to eat, pray, move, and breathe with mindfulness. Care enough. She reconnects with the sound of her own voice, the rhythm of her own heartbeat, the beauty of her own company. She learns how to ask for help, not from a place of weakness, but from a place of strength that says, I don't have to do this alone anymore. She begins to prioritize joy, not just survival. And she understands that she doesn't have to prove value by overgiving. Her presence, her essence, her being, that is enough. And something amazing happens when a woman chooses herself. The world doesn't fall apart. The people who truly love her don't leave. The sun still rises. More importantly, she rises. She rises with clarity. She rises with boundaries. She rises with courage and compassion. She becomes anchored in who she is, enough, not in who she had to be for others. This kind of choice is not made once. It is made daily. Choosing herself becomes a lifestyle, not just a moment. Care enough. Every day she wakes up and decides, today I will not abandon myself. And every day she honors that decision. Not perfectly, but faithfully. People may understand her new strength. They may call it selfishness, arrogance, distance. But what they're really witnessing is her evolution. Care enough. And evolution is often misunderstood by those who benefited from your sacrifice. She no longer shrinks to fit in. Enough. She no longer silences her voice for the sake of peace. She is no longer afraid of who she becomes when she chooses herself, because she knows now, care enough, the best version of her was never the one that pleased everyone. It's the one that pleased God and gave peace to herself. She understands that her value was never meant to be earned. It was always inherent, and now she walks in that truth. She walks lighter. She loves wiser. She gives, but not from emptiness, from overflow. She helps, but not at her own expense. She shows up and care enough, but not to be everything for everyone, just to be fully and beautifully herself. Care enough. There comes a time in a woman's life when she grows weary of waiting. Waiting for approval, waiting for praise, ever enough, waiting for someone to tell her she's worthy, that she's doing a good job, that she matters. She no longer lives for compliments that come too late or not at all. She no longer adjusts her shine to suit the comfort of others. She no longer seeks to be accepted in rooms where she must mute her spirits to be seen because something within her wakes up. Slowly but surely, care enough. Now she begins to understand that the validation she was chasing from others could never compare to the peace of being fully aligned with herself. Care enough. She no longer waits for validation because she realizes how costly it is to live in someone else's mirror. She understands that when she ties her worth to people's opinion, she gives them the power to define her identity. And that power she now reclaims. She no longer dances to the rhythm of external applause because she has found a steadier rhythm within, a rhythm that doesn't change with mood, seasons, or shifting perspectives, a rhythm that comes from purpose. It didn't happen overnight. No, she had to unlearn years of conditioning. For so long, she was taught to measure herself by titles, likes, followers, feedback, and fleeting recognition. If she succeeded, she waited for someone to clap. If she failed, she waited for someone to approve her effort. She waited to be told she was beautiful. She waited to be acknowledged for her sacrifices. She waited to be noticed when she was silently breaking inside, tired of shrinking when misunderstood. Tired of questioning herself when overlooked, care enough. Tired of living on the edge of someone else's approval. And in that exhaustion, she chose something different. She's herself. She no longer waits for validation because she understands that her value is not up for negotiation. It is not based on the opinions of friends, family, bosses, partners, or strangers. Her value is not determined by whether someone claps or critiques. She is valuable because she exists, because God breathed life into her and care enough, because her presence is purpose enough. She learns to become her own witness, to celebrate her own wins, no matter how small. She honors her progress even when no one sees it. She knows the battles she's fought behind closed doors. She knows the tears she wiped in silence. She knows the courage it takes to keep going when the world gives no applause. And that knowing becomes her power. She no longer needs someone to validate her beauty. She sees herself with new eyes, eyes that are no longer clouded by comparison. She stops measuring herself by filtered images and curated lives. Her beauty is not just in her face or figure. It's in her soul, her resilience, enough, her softness, her fire, her laughter, and her scars. She embraces the unique essence of who she is without waiting for a man, a social media post, care enough, or a compliment to tell her she's enough. She no longer needs someone to validate her worth as a woman, whether she is single, married, divorced, a mother, or child-free. She knows her worth is not attached to her relationship status or reproductive history. She is whole all by herself. She walks with dignity, care enough, and not because the world deems her, because she recognizes her completeness in God and herself. She no longer waits for someone to say she's smart enough, capable enough, spiritual enough, worthy enough. She's done performing for approval, care enough, done explaining her dreams to people who only believe in what they can see, done trying to make everyone comfortable at the expense of her own discomfort. She no longer waits to be invited into spaces she has already outgrown. She doesn't beg for a seat at tables where presence is only tolerated but never celebrated. Understands now she is the table. She carries substance, care enough, vision, wisdom, and divine power, and anyone who can't see that is simply not assigned to her journey. And with that new foundation, she begins to walk differently. She walks into rooms without needing everyone to like her. She speaks up without over-explaining herself. Care enough, she posts without checking how many likes she gets. She dresses for her joy, not for attention. She follows her convictions, even if it means disappointing others. She makes decisions from a place of clarity, not desperation. Care enough. And when she doubts herself, as humans sometimes do, she doesn't run to people to fix it. She returns to her source. She returns to prayer and care enough. She returns to truth. She is no longer shaken by rejection. She doesn't chase what leaves and care enough because she understands that anything or anyone who must be chased isn't meant to be kept. What's for her won't require her to shrink, perform, or beg. And what's not for her will be removed in grace, no matter how much it hurt before. She now knows that even rejection was a redirection. She doesn't need external permission to grow. She grows in silence, in stillness, in sacred spaces where only God and her heart can see the work being done. Care enough. And when she blooms with quiet strength, not for show, but for healing. She no longer waits for validation because she's learned the most important voice she'll ever respond to is her own. The most sacred eyes she will ever receive is the one she gives herself. And the greatest peace she will ever experience is knowing that she is enough, even when no one else says so. And so now, she moves forward with grace, with boldness, with softness that does not equal weakness, with strength that doesn't scream but stands firm. She validates herself, her choices, her dreams, care enough, her direction enough. For so long, women have been told, subtly and overtly, that choosing themselves is selfish, that prioritizing their own needs, setting boundaries, saying no, or even daring to dream for themselves somehow makes it less loving, less kind, less nurturing. The idea of putting yourself first has been painted as rebellion, arrogance, or betrayal. But that narrative is not only false, it's harmful. It is a holy return to who you were before the world told you that your worth was tied only to your service. It is a divine realignment with your Creator's intent for your life. Care enough. It is the moment you stop abandoning your own soul in an attempt to be everything for everyone else. Choosing yourself is not about discarding others. It is about remembering yourself. A woman often loses herself piece by piece. Not all at once, but over time. She puts her dreams on pause to support someone else's. She swallows her words to keep peace. She says yes when her heart is screaming no. She bends, adjusts, and stretches herself until she forgets the shape of her own identity. And then one day, she wakes up feeling empty, invisible, disconnected from her purpose. Choosing yourself is about coming back. God, coming back to your voice, your worth, your dreams, your divine rhythm. Care enough. It is recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you were never meant to live in depletion. It is understanding that your life has value beyond what you give to others. You are not just a role, a wife, a mother, a daughter, a friend. You are a soul, a whole being with needs, callings, and purpose of your own. The sacredness of choosing yourself lies in the quiet courage it takes. It is easy to lose yourself in doing. It is harder to be still and ask, what do I need? It takes faith to believe that your needs matter. Care enough, that your voice matters, that your body, your mind, your rest, your joy, they matter. Sacred doesn't always look loud or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a whispered no, a brave boundary, a calendar clear for rest, a morning walk in silence, a tearful prayer whispered in the dark. It is sacred because it honors the divine spark within you, the image of God you carry. You were not created to be a martyr of your own soul. Care enough. You were created to live freely with joy, strength, and balance. The sacredness of choosing yourself is rooted in honoring that truth. Care of it does not mean you stop loving others. It means you love from a place of fullness, not obligation. And care enough. It means you are no longer trying to earn worth through over giving. You no longer seek identity in being needed. You give, but you don't give yourself away. You serve, but you don't sacrifice your soul. You support others, but you also support yourself with the same compassion, tenderness, and grace. Care enough. Choosing yourself is sacred because it is healing. It is saying to the wounded parts of you, I see you now. It is facing the broken pieces you've ignored while trying to be strong for everyone else. It is choosing therapy, choosing solitude, care enough, choosing reflection, choosing stillness long enough to hear what your own spirit has been trying to say beneath all the noise. You begin to reclaim the pieces you once gave away too freely. To people who never knew how to value you, to systems that asked you to perform but never truly saw you. It is sacred because it is a return to truth. You strip away the false layers, the people-pleasing, perfectionism, the performing, the silent suffering. You get honest about what no longer serves you. The environments, the relationships, the patterns that keep you in cycles of self-abandonment. You begin to choose peace over pretending, wholeness over approval, healing over hiding. Care enough. Some may not understand your choice. They may call it selfishness, distance, or attitude. But what they are really witnessing is your awakening. The you that they were comfortable with, the constantly available, always agreeable, quietly exhausted version is no longer here. You have evolved. Care enough. And evolution often offends those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But you no longer apologize for choosing yourself. Because you know now, enough. Choosing yourself is choosing God's best for you. He never called you to burnout. He never called you to stay small. He never called you to say yes out of fear or guilt. He called you to abundance, to wholeness, to truth. You rise slowly, intentionally, fiercely. Enough. Not to prove anything, but to finally be everything God designed you to be. You begin to fill your own cup, not from selfishness, but from sacred stewardship of your life. You learn to say yes to what aligns with your spirit and no to what disturbs your peace. Care enough. You begin to hear your own intuition again. You trust it. You trust yourself. Choosing yourself is also choosing your future. It is refusing past down cycles of emotional neglect, self-denial, and silent suffering to the next generation. It is breaking the narrative that says love equals sacrifice of self. It is showing your children, your sisters, your friends, and yourself that joy, health, purpose and rest are not luxuries. They are necessities. You begin to walk differently and care enough. You move through the world with a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation. You stop over-explaining. You don't rush to justify your choices. Care enough. You simply walk in peace, knowing that when God gives you a vision for your life, not everyone will understand it. And they don't have to. You understand it, and that's enough. So, no, choosing yourself is not selfish. It is sacred. It is divine obedience. It is reclaiming your time, your power, your story. It is honoring the God of you. It is finally looking in the mirror and saying, you matter too. And when you choose yourself, care enough, you give other women permission to do the same. You become the example, the light. Care enough, the living reminder that self-love and spiritual alignment are not opposites. They are companions. You walk not in rebellion, but in reverence. Not in defiance, but in purpose. You no longer feel guilty for putting yourself first. You feel grateful. Grateful that you finally woke up, finally listened. I finally came home to you. Because when a woman chooses herself, everything shifts. Heaven takes notice, and she becomes unstoppable. Not just because she's strong, but because she's whole. There is a sacred season in a woman's life when she no longer measures her strength by how much she can endure. She no longer wears suffering as a badge of honor or silence as a sign of loyalty. She stops calling survival success. Instead, she begins the deeper work of healing. She begins the quiet, holy, often painful process of reclaiming her power. For far too long, care enough, many women have been conditioned to equate their value with their availability. They've been told that being good means being agreeable. That being strong means never needing help. That being loving means never saying no. They have been taught to carry burdens in silence, care enough to be the rock for everyone else while silently crumbling inside. But the truth is this: a woman's power is not found in how much she can tolerate. Enough. Her power is found in how deeply she chooses to protect her peace, honor her truth, and create space for her healing. And that begins with boundaries. Care enough. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are expressions of love. Love for oneself and love for others. Boundaries say, I know my limits. Care enough. I know what I can carry and what I cannot. I know what I need to feel safe, whole, and sane. Boundaries are not selfish walls that shut people out. They are sacred gates that guard what matters most: your peace, your time, your energy, your purpose. When a woman begins to set boundaries, care enough, it is not a sign of separation, it's a sign of restoration. She is no longer willing to betray herself to keep the peace. Care enough. She no longer says when her soul is screaming no. She no longer tolerates emotional manipulation, guilt trips, or the weight of toxic expectations. She learns that she can still be kind and say no. She can still be loving and keep her distance. She can still be generous and protect her emotional capacity. Care enough. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling access. Who has access to your time, your thoughts, your body, your heart? And care enough. Who honors you? Who confuses your spirit? Who leaves you doubting your worth? Care enough. A woman who reclaims her power does not ignore these questions anymore. She answers them, and she acts accordingly. Care enough. Healing is not just about recovering from what hurt her. It's about remembering who she was before the pain. It's about becoming who she was always meant to be, even after the storm. Healing is not linear. It is messy, non-glamorous, and deeply spiritual. It requires truth-telling, grieving, resting, forgiving, and releasing. And it often begins the moment she realizes, enough. I deserve more than what broke me. A woman reclaims her power through healing when she decides to stop carrying things that were never hers to hold. The shame of what someone else did to her. Care enough. The burden of unrealistic expectations, the fear of being misunderstood, the lies that said she wasn't enough. Care enough. She starts to recognize the unhealthy patterns, the need to overextend, the fear of disappointing others, the constant hustle for worth, and she begins to unlearn them in the space boundaries create. She begins to feel again. Not numb, not disconnected, but fully present with herself. She cries not because she's weak, but because she's finally safe enough to let it out. She rests, not because she's lazy and care enough, because she no longer wants to live life exhausted. She reflects, not to judge herself, care enough, but to understand the journey she's been on and how far she's come. She may seek therapy, she may journal, she may pray. She may walk in nature. She may sit in silence. But whatever her method, she is choosing wholeness over performance. She is choosing truth over appearance. She is choosing peace over pretending. And with every boundary she sets and everyone she tends to, her power begins to rise. Not the loud, performative power the world often applauds, but a quiet, rooted spiritual power. A power that says, I no longer have to prove myself to be worthy. A power that gives her the strength to walk away from what no longer serves her, to say no without guilt, to stand alone if necessary. She no longer needs to control outcomes or fix everyone. She knows that healing has taught her how to let go, how to trust God, and how to prioritize her emotional well-being. She's no longer trying to earn love by abandoning herself. She's no longer overexposing her heart just to feel connected. She has learned to discern who gets access to her and why. And yes, this process may be lonely at times. People who were used to her silence may resist her voice. Karen, people who were used to her availability may not like her boundaries. But she doesn't let that stop her anymore, because she knows that the people who truly love her will adapt. And the people who don't were only attached to a version of her that no longer exists. She is not bitter. She is better. Better because she chose herself. Better because she faced the truth. Better because she did the hard work of healing what was hurting. Better because she finally came home to her soul. Her power is no longer borrowed from others' approval. It is no longer tied to how much she can do for others. It flows from within, from alignment, care enough, from clarity, from inner peace. And that kind of power cannot be taken. It is sustained by truth. It is guarded by boundaries. It is strengthened by healing. Now, enough. When she speaks, her voice carries weight. When she moves, it is with intention. When she loves, it is without losing herself. Care enough. She doesn't need for a seat at the table. She knows she can build her own. She doesn't seek validation from people who never understood her worth. She validates herself, and in doing so, she becomes a light, a quiet revolution, a sacred testimony that healing is possible and boundaries are holy. Care enough. She becomes a reminder to every woman watching her that you don't have to be broken to be loved. You don't have to exhaust yourself to be accepted. You don't have to prove your worth. You only need to remember it. There is something quietly powerful about a woman who has endured pain, betrayal, rejection, and disappointment. And yet when she rises, she does not rise with a clenched fist, a hardened heart, or a spirit filled with vengeance. She rises with something far more dangerous to darkness and defeat bold awareness. Bitterness may have knocked on her door. Care enough. It may have whispered seductively in her ears, tempting her to hold on to offense, to live her life from a place of blame and guardedness. And for a while, and care, maybe she did entertain it. Maybe she did sit in the ashes of what hurt her, recounting every wrong, every loss, every unkept promise. That is human. That is grief. That is real. Because she realized something. Bitterness is heavy. It changes the way you see everything. It colors your perspective. Karen blocks your blessings and poisons your joy. She realized that while bitterness feels like protection, it's really a prison. And she wanted freedom. Enough, not just the freedom to move on from the past, but the freedom to become the version of herself that pain tried to bury. Not out of spite, care enough, but not of desperation, but out of deep sacred clarity. She saw too much to remain blind. She felt much to remain numb. She learned too much to remain small. Her rise was not a dramatic announcement. It was a deliberate decision. A daily choosing of wholeness over hardness, a daily refusal to let her past dictate her pace, her peace, or her purpose. This rise, this evolution is routed in awareness. She now sees who she is and who she is not. She sees the lessons in what tried to destroy her. She sees the difference between attention and love, between control and care, between obligation and connection. She sees herself with honest eyes, her wounds, her wisdom, her weaknesses, her wins. And she embraces it all. She no longer has to pretend or perform. Her awareness gives her permission to be real. She's aware of what she allowed, and care enough, aware of where she silenced herself, aware of how she betrayed her own spirit just to keep the peace. And she forgives herself, because she understands that she was doing the best she could with what she knew. But now she knows better, and with that knowing comes power. She is no longer afraid of being misunderstood. Care enough. Her life no longer needs to be explained to those who choose not to see her. She has no interest in defending her healing journey or proving that her growth is valid. She has moved beyond the need for external applause. Care enough. Her bold awareness anchors her in the truth that the right people, the ones divinely aligned with her destiny, will recognize her without needing a presentation. She is aware of time, how quickly it passes and how precious it is. She is done wasting it on empty conversations, forced connections, and one-sided relationship. She no longer lingers in places that drain her spirit. Her time is intentional, sacred, valuable. And now, she spends it accordingly. Care enough. She is aware of energy, hers and others. She can sense when something isn't right, when a room isn't safe, when a smile is performative. She trusts her intuition now. That quiet voice she used to ignore, it's no longer a whisper, it's a command. And she listens. She is aware of her body, of how it holds trauma, how it speaks through tension, through fatigue, through restlessness. She listens to it with tenderness, criticism. She rests without guilt. She moves not to punish it, but honor it. Her body is not an object of scrutiny. It is the sacred home she lives in. And she finally treats it as such. She is aware of her patterns. She catches herself when she starts to shrink, when she wants to say yes just to be liked, care enough when she wants to fix what's not hers to fix, when she wants to keep peace at the expense of her own well-being. But now she pauses. She breathes. She makes a different choice, a conscious one, a bold one. And she is aware of her power, not the power to control others, the power to control her response, the power to walk away, the power to stay silent when silence speaks louder than words, the power to start over and care enough, the power to heal loudly or quietly. However her spirit leads, she rises now, not because she wants revenge. She rises because she wants reclamation. She wants her time back, her peace back, her voice back, her joy back. She rises with boundaries, not walls, with standards, not stubbornness, with discernment, distrust, with love, but never at the expense of her truth again. And yes, some may misread her. They may call her cold, distant, different, and she is, but not in the way they think. She is not hard. She is healed. She is not bitter. She is aware. She's not angry. She is awake. She no longer walks into rooms wondering if she's enough. He knows she is. She no longer seeks permission to evolve. She evolves anyway. She no longer over-explains her boundaries. She simply honors them. Her rise is not loud, but it is luminous. It lights up the path for other women who are still sitting in the ashes, unsure if they have the strength to stand. It sends a message, not in words, but in presence. That healing is possible, that growth is sacred, that freedom is available. She sees everything now. The truth of others, care enough, the truth of herself to chart her path. And in that awareness, there is peace, there is power, there is purpose. Because enough, when a woman rises not with bitterness, but with bold awareness, she does not just change her life, she changes the atmosphere. She becomes a force, a light, a truth teller, a mirror. And so she rises again and again. Not because life is easy, but because her soul refuses to stay buried. Care enough, not because she's unshaken, but because she is routed. Not because she's fearless, but because she is fiercely aware. There's a shift that happens the moment a woman chooses herself. And not just in private, quiet ways, but fully, visibly, and unapologetically. It's not a choice made in arrogance or rebellion, but in awareness. It's not rooted in selfishness, but in self-honoring. This decision to choose herself sends a silent but powerful ripple through every area of her life. When she chooses herself, everything changes. Not instantly, but inevitably, the energy around her begins to shift. The dynamics in her relationships begin to realign. And care enough, the expectations once placed on her begin to crumble under the weight of her awakening. Because when a woman chooses herself, care enough, the world is forced to adjust to her new standard. For so long, she may have been the one who overextended, who gave endlessly, who dimmed her light just to fit, just to please, just to keep peace. She was the dependable one, the fixer, the yes woman, the comfort in everyone's chaos. She stretched herself thin, carrying emotional loads that were never hers to bear. She confused love with sacrifice and loyalty with losing herself. She accepted less because she was taught that less was better than nothing. A moment arrived where the H of self, abandonment, became louder than the praise she received for being so strong, so selfless, so accommodating. She started to see that her needs weren't negotiable. Her peace wasn't optional. Her dreams weren't silly, care enough. Her emotions weren't burdens. She woke up to the reality that no one was coming to save her, and she didn't need them to, because saving herself wasn't a rescue mission. It was a return. And in choosing herself, she stopped begging for love that came with conditions. She stopped entertaining conversations that drained her spirit. She stopped rearranging her life to fit into people's temporary spaces. She began to operate from a place of deservedness, not entitlement, but quiet confidence, not pride, but alignment. She raised her standard, not just for others, but for herself. She began to speak to herself with more kindness, She stopped over apologizing. She made room for her joy, her desires, her healing. She became more intentional with her time. She stopped rushing to respond, rushing to fix, rushing to explain. She gave herself permission to slow down, to breathe, to just be. Some celebrated her evolution. They respected her growth and adjusted accordingly. Others resisted, shocked that the woman who once tolerated so much now chooses differently. They may have called her distant, difficult, different. And they were right. She was different. Because choosing yourself always comes with change. Not just in what you do, but in what you accept. Care enough. Her no became firmer. Her yes became rare. Her boundaries were no longer suggestions. They were declarations. She no longer explained her peace to people committed to misunderstanding her. She no longer engaged in spaces that demanded her silence in exchange for belonging. She no longer watered herself down to be digestible. And yes, enough. There were losses. Some connections fell away. Some doors closed. Some circles grew smaller. But what she gained could never compare to what she lost. She gained herself, her voice, her peace, her power, her clarity, because energy cannot lie. When a woman raises her standard, she sends out a frequency, a vibration that says, this is who I am now. This is what I accept. This is what I won't tolerate. This is what I deserve. And that frequency calls in people, opportunities, environments, and experiences that match her new alignment. Anything that doesn't match falls away. This is not magic. This is truth. When you honor yourself, the world mirrors that honor back to you. When you value your time, others begin to respect it. When you protect your peace, chill stops finding a home in your life. When you speak with intention, enough meaningless noise fades into silence. She no longer begged for reciprocity. She expected it, and not out of entitlement, but out of understanding that she is no longer available for one-side energy. She doesn't chase. She doesn't force. She doesn't settle. What aligns stays. What doesn't leaves. And she no longer fears that. When she chooses herself, she creates a new atmosphere, care enough, an atmosphere of dignity, of worth, a standard. She becomes a space where only truth can dwell, a space where love must be real and connection must be mutual, a space where peace is non-negotiable. Her children see it. Her friends feel it. Her coworkers notice it. It's in how she walks into a room. Or enough, it's in how she looks at herself in the mirror. It's in how she chooses rest without guilt. How she walks away from what disturbs her spirit. Care enough. How she no longer tries to prove her worth. Choose enough doesn't mean she stops serving, loving, or giving. Care enough. It means she does all those things from fullness, from choice, not from obligation, from joy, not from depletion. And care enough. She becomes more generous because she's no longer empty. More patient because she's no longer exhausted. More present because she's no longer fragmented. Chosen herself didn't make her colder. It made her clear. She leads other women to remember their worth. She becomes a mirror, a guide, I care enough, a quiet revolution as it is safe to honor yourself. It is holy to prioritize your well-being. It is powerful to choose you. And as she continues to choose herself daily, intentionally, courageously, the world continues to adjust. Because the world always responds to a woman who finally knows who she is, who knows what she brings, who knows what she carries, who refuses to shrink again.